All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, after suffering that TKO at the hands of the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl number 59, it's back to the drawing board for the Kansas City Chiefs, and it might be time for them to adjust and adapt in the process. And of course, as the offseason has begun for a team that has won three Super Bowl championships since 2019, there's some questions that have to be answered this offseason. So, pardon me, it says Super Bowl 2019, excuse me. But just like it was when the Chiefs lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Super Bowl 55, this Eagles defense put the blueprint out there for the rest of the NFL to follow, which is to simply heat up Patrick Mahomes. And of course, everybody does not have the personnel that the Philadelphia Eagles do have, but nonetheless, we saw it where, at the end of the day, as great as Patrick Mahomes is, no quarterback is going to beat you when he doesn't have time in that pocket. And of course, for the bulk of that game on Sunday night, it was one of those where Mahomes really never had an opportunity to get those feet set. And of course, that offensive line, they were able to plug and patch it throughout the season, but at this point, you can't hide something in a loss. And usually, what you cannot do well, regardless of the sport, always shows up at the most inopportune time. And I think that O line is something that the Chiefs are going to have to address. You look at Kansas City, and they have gotten accustomed to picking late in round one of the NFL draft, as success comes with a price. And of course, just because you are picking at the end of the round doesn't mean that you can't find quality players there, because the Chiefs have, as have other teams. And of course, like I've talked about before, sometimes these teams that are picking early on in the draft, they don't have a clue as to what they're doing. And guys who should have gone a lot higher tend to fall into the lap of the playoff teams. But with that said, the Chiefs have found guys, late in the round one, and, gems in the draft throughout. But I think it's one of those now that maybe they might want to like pivot slightly from their strategy. And I say that because they're finding guys that fit their system. But I think Kansas City needs to go out there and find more impact players. And the reason why I say it is this: I've had a philosophy the last couple of years. It almost looks like at times where the Chiefs are like, you know what, we got Chris Jones, we got Travis Kelsey, and we got Patrick Mahomes, and there's basically 50 other guys out there. You're going to need more playmakers, and I think it's showing right now. Again, upgrading the offensive line is big. Six times Patrick Mahomes was sacked on Sunday night. It seemed like a lot more because he was running for his life, and I cannot harp on this enough. No quarterback can go out there and beat you if he does not have time. So I think offensive tackle definitely needs to be a priority in round one of the upcoming draft. We're talking about Mahomes, like I said, sacked six times in Super Bowl 59, 11 in three playoff games, 36 for the regular season, which was a career high. And of course, if you put all of those numbers together, we're talking about 47 sacks for this guy. And of course, for Mahomes, believe it or not, this was the first time in his illustrious career that he didn't pass for 4,000 yards in the season. And I know some people will say, well, he didn't play the last game. I totally get it, but it's still a number up there that Patrick Mahomes unfortunately didn't get to. And at the end of the day, of course, the wins are still important. But nonetheless, one big question: how much longer is Andy Reid going to continue to be the head coach of Kansas City? And I'm not asking this from a standpoint of whether or not that the Chiefs should move on from Reid. Absolutely not. I truly believe that this is going to come down to how much longer does a 67-year-old Reid want to coach. It probably is going to be his decision. I feel like the Chiefs organization has given him that much respect, and he's earned it. He deserves it. Okay. We're talking about a guy, he's 67 years of age. He's been coaching in the National Football League for a very long time prior to becoming the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles in 1999. Of course, he was most notably an assistant, an offensive coordinator, if you will, for the Green Bay Packers under then head coach Mike Holmgren. I think it's going to be interesting for Andy Reid because we're talking about a guy who flat out is a surefire Hall of Famer, got both the Eagles and Chiefs to the Super Bowl. He's a three-time Super Bowl champion. You think about all of the different starting quarterbacks that Andy Reid has gotten to the postseason with Jeff Garcia, Donovan McNabb, Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes, just to name a few. But nonetheless, it's one of those where I think Reid can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that light at the end of the tunnel is this: maybe he has an opportunity to catch Bill Belichick and Don Shula for wins. So I think he might want to hang around. And again, it's as long as he wants to do that. But if it was the case where Andy Reid would start to think about exiting stage right, is it time for the Chiefs to go out there and maybe groom his successor, maybe groom somebody from within his coaching staff to be the next guy? Should he want to leave in a year or two? Got to think about those things. Travis Kelsey is 35 years of age, and you just have to wonder how much longer does the future Hall of Fame tight end want to keep playing? Travis Kelsey, he just finished a solid regular season, 97 receptions, just a little bit more than 800 yards receiving and three touchdowns. You look at Kelsey outside of the Houston game in the divisional round, really didn't have an impact throughout the last two games for the Chiefs in the playoffs. Of course, the AFC Championship game against Buffalo, and then of course the Super Bowl. And then you think about it, Kansas City really had to adjust and adapt on the fly due to the pass rush that the Eagles were creating with their front four. So we saw Kelsey in more pass protection, which is not a specialty of his. But at the end of the day, you know, you're hearing Travis Kelsey say, hey, you know what? He's going to take some time this offseason to think about it. And whenever you hear that from players, I'm not saying that he's not going to come back for 2025. But if he does, 2025, in my opinion, more than likely would be his last season in the NFL. And honestly, at the end of the day, if Travis Kelsey did decide to ride off in the sunset, he has absolutely nothing less to prove. We're talking about a three-time Super Bowl champion, one of the best tight ends to have ever done it in the National Football League, and also one of the best big game players as well. But at the end of the day, like I said before, the Chiefs can simply no longer just rely on their system of Mahomes, Kelsey, and defensive tackle Chris Jones. And I think they need more playmakers on both sides of the football. I think Xavier Worthy could be something special for Kansas City, and he could be their new Tyreek Hill. And you remember how Tyreek Hill was that home run threat for the Kansas City Chiefs the first time around that they won the Super Bowl. Worthy definitely has that speed. Put together a pretty good rookie season. I think he's going to build off of that as he continues to develop that rapport with Patrick Mahomes. But then again, I think that the Chiefs simply need more playmakers in that secondary, more playmakers at the linebacker position. And like I said, they simply can no longer just go out there and rely on their system. And then if Kelsey does decide to walk away, that is a huge void for Kansas City in their passing game because Kelsey has meant so much to this team for so very long, and you simply just don't replace guys like that. Were the Chiefs simply victims of their own success? I don't think so, because I think it was just one of those things where the bottom line is the Philadelphia Eagles were the better team, and I think it showed up like that. It's one of those where Kansas City, surely they had some games that you could make an argument and say, you know what, they should have lost. But at the end of the day, Kansas City found a way to win those games during the regular season. And I think it was their championship medal. And I also think it was the fact that some teams that they faced simply didn't know how to get over that hump. And like I said before, leading up to the Super Bowl, if you're going to beat these Chiefs, you've got to be super aggressive. You've got to play 60 minutes. you have to play smart football and you have to execute. And I think that's something that the Chiefs still specialize in. Has the Chiefs championship window closed? I don't think so. But I think right now, I think they can take a page from the New England Patriots of the Tom Brady era. And of course, towards the end of Brady's time with New England, Bill Belichick did not do a good job of drafting and developing and bringing in talent. I totally get it. But the Patriots over the years during that run, they knew how to adjust and adapt. You think about in those early championships with Brady, it was more about the defense. And of course, as we saw the maturation process of Brady go on, it became more about Brady. And then we saw them shift from the deep threat wide receivers like a Randy Moss, of course, to the two tight end system, featuring a Rob Gronkowski. There's so many interchangeable parts on defense, but they still were able to bring in some playmakers here and there. And I think it's going to be time for Kansas City to do that because their Super Bowl window is not closed as long as you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. It's one of those where guys know that Mahomes is going to give them the opportunity to win. But like I said, they just simply need to go out there and get themselves some more playmakers. Also, very interesting, the AFC West. The AFC West has gotten better. We've seen, or we saw, three of the four members of that division make the playoffs this past season, once you count in the Chargers and the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are looking very good under head coach Sean Payton. Jim Harbaugh is changing the culture for the Chargers. And of course, now you got Pete Carroll running things for the Vegas Raiders. So, coaching wise, I think that room has definitely improved because, with the exception of Jim Harbaugh, all of these coaches that I have mentioned have won a Super Bowl. We saw the Broncos, of course, they beat the Chiefs in week 18. Granted that the Chiefs rested their starters, but they pushed Kansas City to the limit earlier this season in Arrowhead. We saw the Chargers push them. We saw the Raiders push them. It's one of those where I think this division is going to get a little bit more competitive next season and in the coming years. So it's not going to be as easy for Kansas City to go out there and win this division. Not saying that they can't do it. And then, of course, you still look at the AFC picture. You've still got the likes of Buffalo, Cincinnati, Baltimore, and others. Will anybody be able to overtake the Chiefs? And I think it comes down to drafting. It comes down to free agency, which teams bring in guys, which teams lose guys, and then more importantly, execution in those big moments. Because outside of the Cincinnati Bengals and the New England Patriots, when Tom Brady was there hasn't been an AFC team that has been able to say, "Hey, we beat Mahomes and the Chiefs in January." And I think at the end of the day, somebody still has to go out there and dethrone them in that conference. So I think, of course, the Chiefs were going for something special on Sunday. And of course, unfortunately for them and their fan base, they came up short. And I think with that said, they got served a big slice of humble pie. But I think that humble pie should allow this team to come back and compete more and harder. Next season, it's not going to be any easier because you're still going to have everybody looking to knock you off because you are the Chiefs. But like I said, for them to get back and win another championship, I think they're going to need to slightly pivot and start thinking about bringing in more playmakers as opposed to just guys who could fit their system. Patrick Mahomes ain't going anywhere, which means that you're still going to have plenty of opportunities to be in this situation and be in the Super Bowl moment once again. So, like I said, in my opinion, the Chiefs should adjust and slightly adapt. Will they do it? We just got to wait and see. But, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, follow me. It'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.